Howdy everyone, welcome back to our video series on our Monport laser. Today I'm going to be showing you the rotary that you can buy for this laser. This is the very first time of us using a rotary on a laser, and I'm going to try to go through each step very carefully because I see a lot of people ruin their machines, specifically their limit switches when they hook these up, and so I'm going to make sure I hook up mine correctly, and I'm going to take you through the process so that you can hook up yours correctly as well. So I'm going to unbox this quick and I'll show you what we are working with. So this is the Monport branded rotary. We've had it for quite a while. So now we're just, like I said, taking it out of the box to check it out. And the main cord that's going to connect it to the machine. So that's going to end up connecting to the motor that's on the machine, which is behind this case. It's just a plug and play. And then I'll show you where I'm going to plug this into the machine. You'll also get this, what I would consider a third-party cord. So if you are using this rotary with another laser that doesn't have a port like this, then this would be the cord to use. So we'll assume that you're using this with a Monport machine, so we'll set this cord aside. And then the other things you'll get in the package are these spacers, and then these knobs. And so these, you're going to slide these spacers over the bolts, and these are going to be the locks for the up and down and the side to side. So one goes right here, and one goes down here. And we'll just screw those in finger tight for now. And that will help us adjust this up and down, side to side. Next, show you where to plug this guy in. So before we turn on the machine, I just put it kind of in the vicinity that I am gonna have the rotary. So the first thing we want to do is plug this guy in, and there is a right and a wrong way to plug it in. So you want to look at the back side of this, and there are two little slots on the back of this, and you want those slots to match the slots in this plastic part. It should go in pretty effortlessly. Just a small little push, and then we'll open a door and I'll show you where this guy goes. And I'll show quick is where this cord goes. I'm using the side access door to feed this back into here. Unscrew this Y cable. I'm going to pull the metal casing and not the wires because I don't want to accidentally rip the wires out of this. And then we want to pay attention on how this goes in there. We don't want to shove it in there. We want to get it so it's oriented right, and then gently screw this in until it's finger tight. And that's how you connect it. So what I've done here is I unplugged the rotary cable that I showed you how to plug in, and plugged in the original Y-axis cord so that I could start the machine and it could home like normal. And so you want to make sure you do that, because if you have the rotary cord plugged in and try to have this thing home, it's not going to be able to. You might ruin something in the machine. So power on the machine like normal. Don't have this cord plugged in quite yet. Let everything home like normal. You want to bring the Y-axis to a spot that you think you'll be putting the rotary, because when you unplug that cord back there, you will lose mobility front and back. So I dropped the bed all the way down. One tip that I had to do to get the bed low enough is after the machine homes, you can bring the laser head up and then use the keypad to drop the bed as low as you can. For me, it didn't drop down low enough, and so what I ended up doing is, again, keeping everything like normal, plugged in. I hit the reset button on my machine, so it reset and went to the home position again, and that allowed me to drop the bed even further. And so now I've been able to drop it low enough where my laser can get over the thing that we're going to be test engraving with. So the next step is going to be unplugging that Y cable, putting the rotary cable in, and then getting everything set up on the computer in Lightburn to try and take a test run at this. The very first thing before we do anything in Lightburn is we want to make sure you save your settings. And so we're going to go to Edit, come down to Machine Settings. It's going to read the controller, and we don't want to change necessarily in here. And I've done some changing in here, so you don't want to reference these. But before you do anything, you want to click Save to File so that you can save your original. So if you click this, you'll name it something, save it. I have mine set to OG Machine Settings Monport 130, so that in the event something happens with the settings, with us calibrating the rotary, I can always come back to my default settings and put my machine back to its default state. So I've already done that, and I would suggest you do that as well. So once we've done that, we can go to Laser Tools and Rotary Setup. And here we're going to see quite a few different numbers and some options. For the roller that we have, it is a roller rather than a chuck rotary, a roller rotary, not a chuck rotary. We're going to enable rotary, which I already have enabled. I'm going to walk you through how you find the steps per rotation. You're going to want to measure your roller diameter. So I'll show you over here what your roller diameter is. So the rollers are these 4 wheels, and we're going to take a digital calipers or a set of calipers to measure the diameter of these guys. And so I've measured mine already. And if we come back over to the computer, I found that mine are 2.38 inches in diameter. And so I entered that number here. The next thing is we're going to look at the object that we're engraving on, which in this case is a cup. And so you want to measure the diameter of the cup that you're engraving and enter that here. Our diameter is 3.44, so I've entered that here. That automatically translates to a circumference, which we're going to use here in a minute to find the steps per rotation. And so once we have the roller diameter, the object diameter entered, I'm going to show you how you find out what your specific rotary has for steps per rotation. I've heard that everybody's steps per rotation is different. So mine, I found, are 4,680 steps per rotation, but that's not necessarily going to be the number that yours is. And so I'm going to click, first I'm going to, I guess, remember this number, 10.80708. So I'm going to hit OK. And I am going to right click, open the move window. And that number that I told you, remember, I'm going to enter in the distance box here. And so I entered that here. I'm going to set my speed to 20. So that's relatively slow. I'm going to set my cup in the rotary over there. And what I'm going to do is put tape around the cup, make a straight line on the cup, set my cup in here with my laser dot on the line, and come back over to the computer. And after I have this number typed in and this number typed in, I'm going to hit the up or down arrow once. And if you look over there, it's spinning right now. It's going to spin around and hopefully land on the line that I created. So you can see there that it landed pretty much on the line again, which means that I have my steps per rotation right. If yours isn't right, you need to go up and down in rotations to figure out what your number is. So for example, mine looks like it actually overshot it a little bit, just barely. And so I'm going to come back into laser tools, go back to rotary setup, and change my steps to maybe 4675 and hit OK. I'll come back over here to my cup, set my cup again on the line, go back over to the computer again, and hit an up or down arrow. Let it make the rotation. And it seemed to work. So those are my steps per rotation. All right, so just to walk you through the entire process, because I know that chopped up process can be kind of confusing, so I'm going to do one continuous video of the entire process of how I would set up the rotary to engrave on a cup. And so the first thing, like we did earlier, we want to check level with the section we're going to be engraving. So we were doing here, I'm going to do this because I still have some area to engrave there. I'm going to move the laser out of the way. I'm going to put my level here. And it looks like I just need to do a small adjustment. So we'll loosen this knob and we'll go up. So if you need to go up, you do clockwise, down is counterclockwise. So right about there's level for me. Next thing we're going to do is bring the laser back. And get our focal distance. And so I'm going to take my handy dandy things and get it so that I can adjust up and down the bed. So I'm going to have my 18 millimeter spot in here. So I have to do a very small adjustment. So right about there, I think is 18. Okay, we got 18 right there. So that should be good. Next thing I'm going to do, take it off the rotary, get my pen and my combination square and put a line where I want the center of my engraving to be. So I want my line, the center of my engraving to be about right there. And so my goal is going to be to put my engraving right there. So what we'll do next is take my digital calipers, turn this on, set it to inches, and we're going to take a diameter reading of this. And this one that I'm doing is a little slanted, so we'll kind of go towards the middle, I suppose. So we're at like 3.5, it looks like. No, just kidding, my caliper's messed up. We are going to be at 2.71. So we'll come back to the computer. We'll go to laser tools, and then object diameter will change to 2.71, I believe is what it was. That gives us a circumference. We're going to copy the circumference, Control C, hit OK. We're going to select the rectangle for our surface area, and I'm going to paste the circumference that we just copied, hit enter, and then I'm going to take a tape measure and I'm going to measure the distance between where this starts aggressively slanting up in the bottom, which we'll call it 2 3/4. So in the width section, we'll enter 2.75 and hit enter. You want to make sure that your lock is unlocked for this. So now you can see here we have our rectangle. I put my name in here, and again, it is just flipped along the axis. So type my name, flipped it, and what it's going to do is it's going to put my name like this, like that way. If you want it to go this way, you just got to turn the name and flip it over the other axis. So that should all be good. And now what we're going to do is we are going to stick this back into the rotary. We're going to reference this line with this green box, make the origin what it needs to be, and I'm actually going to make this a little bit smaller so I don't get into my tape here. I'm going to hit lock. I'm going to go down maybe to 1.75, I suppose. Double check that your name is centered in this whole thing. So we'll go back over to the laser, set it in here. We want to get our red dot to be centered on the line that we made. So that's right there. So we know that it is rotationally in the right space. So we don't want it to be off kilter like that where it's not on our line. We want the dot to be centered on that line. And then what we want to do, since the green box is on the right hand side of our rectangle in Lightburn, we want to move our laser to the edge over here, to the right edge. And then on the machine, we're going to click origin. And what that's going to do is it's going to tell the machine that's where I want you to start. That's the center of my object. So that's where we're going to start. So one last time over to the computer. We will double check our settings. Right now I'm running this at 22 power, 150 speed at 0.06 interval. This is a 130 watt laser, so you'll have to adjust based on what you have. So everything looks good here. The name looks good. My shape is good. If I remembered everything, everything should work out well. So we're going to click on the laser tab. We're going to hit send. I'm going to name this Nate Cup. Hit OK. That's going to send it over to the laser. We can see on the panel here that it sent the Nate Cup file with all my settings. And we'll close the lid and we'll hit start. and see what happens. So we'll see how we turned out. So we have the name there. Everything turned out pretty good. It looks like, at least from my eye, because this has a little bit of a slant to it, that the letters are just a little bit different, but that's just because the focal length changes along this thing. And so one thing that you could maybe do to make that better is we could focus this to the center of this rather than the end of it. And so that's maybe one quick fix, but if you're dealing with a flat surface, it shouldn't matter. Clean this up with soap and water, and it should be good to go. So one of the biggest mistakes that I think people make when they have their rotary plugged in is they get done using the rotary, turn off their machine, and then go to turn on their machine again and forget that all of this is connected. And what we want to do is we want to turn on our machine like normal. And before this can complete the homing cycle, we want to hit escape so it stops the homing cycle. Because next I'm going to show you how you reprogram the laser back to normal so that we can disconnect the rotary and get it back into a normal flat plane laser engraver. An example of what we need to do: turn the laser on like normal, let it load. It's going to start homing. I'm going to hit escape to stop the homing process. Now, again, this is I think where most people mess up, because I canceled the homing process, the laser has no idea where any of its coordinates are. And so if I try to move this laser left or right to its boundaries, it's going to slam into either of those boundaries because it just doesn't know where its limits are currently. So you have to be careful of that. But we're going to open up the computer and I'll show you how to reprogram everything back to normal. So the first thing we want to do is go to Edit, open up our machine settings, and we'll let these load up. As you can see here, our enable rotary button is selected true, and so we want to change these settings that we changed at the beginning of the video back to the original settings. So that's where we saved that file, and so we're going to click load from file. We're going to double click on the OG machine settings, so these would be the settings you saved. So now we can see enable rotary is off, and we're going to hit right so that it uploads all these factory settings back to the laser, and we're going to hit OK. So now our settings should be back to normal. To double check that our rotary is off, we're going to go to Laser Tools, Rotary Setup, and it looks like our enable rotary button is off, so that's good. So now I am going to hit cancel. And the next thing we're going to do is I'll show you how we are going to disconnect the rotary and plug in the original Y motor. All right, so you might not be able to see this very well, but we showed at the beginning of the video how to remove the wire from the Y motor and connect the rotary motor. So now we're going to do the opposite of that process. We're going to plug in the Y motor again and snug up the collar on it. So everything originally that was connected is back to normal. I'm going to feed this wire back through here, get it out of the way. And so you can probably do this one of two ways. You can either probably hit the reset button, and this is going to go to its home, or we can turn off the laser and turn it back on, let it do its homing process, and we should be good to go. So what I'm going to elect to do is I'm going to shut off the laser, and after I turn it back on, it should home like normal. So cross our fingers, I guess. And there it is, just like that. We're back to normal. So we can remove the rotary, bring the bed all the way back up, and you'll be good to start using your laser like normal. So the very last thing that we'll do is we'll raise the bed back up. So if you have a controller like mine, you're going to hit the middle button to bring up the Z move, and then we're going to hit the left key, and that is slowly but surely going to bring the bed back up. So once this is back at kind of a normal height, we'll be ready to go. You do want to double check as you're bringing this up that you don't accidentally run into your laser head with the honeycomb. The one last setting we want to change back in light burn is this drop down called start from and we had it in current position, and we want to change it to absolute coordinates. And you'll see that that will change it back to the top right corner like we want. It was on this item right on the right hand side with the rotary, so we just want to make sure we change that setting as well.